You got anything offensive to say before we start going on?
Nope, I don't have anything offensive to say before we start going on because I know you'll turn it on just as soon as I say it.
Mm. You're learning. That's good. You're growing. You've just taken your first step into a larger world.
Yes, I have.
Yes. I'm Eric Paul
And
Johnson.
actually, this larger world, the first thing I stepped in is Dookie.
I'm Eric Paul Johnson. That's Dookie.
Dookie Howser.
I'm saying, I'm like thinking, if we were living in a commune, a bunch of hippies, that's going to be your name now. That's Dookie over there. I'm Pigpen. And we got comments about After All. Mike
Yes, we
Hudson.
do.
Mike Hudson. I'm glad you guys mentioned it sounds like soundtrack music because I've always thought that as well. I never particularly thought it sounded like it might be from a sci-fi soundtrack, but I can certainly see that now that you mention it. But it's such a moody, sad, and mournful sounding track that it would work well in any number of theatrical genres. It could even be the theme music to a television show, perhaps at the end of the show. I don't know if I want to watch the show that ends every episode with After All, because it sounds like it would be a unbelievably depressing show to be watching if that's your closing theme. Perhaps at the end of a show. I did buy the Rock and Roll is King single, so I heard this when it first came out. It reminded me somewhat of When Time Stood Still, even though there were no lyrics. I really like the song, or should I say tune. When I got the double version of Secret Messages, when I got the double version of Secret Messages, I was shocked and disappointed to find it'd been edited down to less than half its actual length. Should have been the full length version. I'd gladly have traded Letter from Spain to have this track in its entirety on the original standard version of the album. The following isn't really about the song. By the way, I'd mentioned the Podbean app caused my phone to reboot when I listened to last week's episode. Well, I decided to try again with this podcast, and it made it almost all the way through, but right after Troy started his segment, my phone froze up and then rebooted. I was sitting at my computer at the time, so I just pulled it up online and finished listening that way. I had a couple of other people reply and say they'd had the same kind of issues as well. Yeah, I heard that's been happening. It doesn't happen to me because for one thing, I showed you my phone last week, but there's still my iPod, and I never listen to it on my iPod. I always listen to it on my computer. Sometimes through Podbean, and it plays all the way through. But mostly I subscribed through iTunes, and I download it from there just to give myself one extra, listen every week to add to the listens. So subscribe through iTunes, and you download it. You have no problems. You can download it at Podbean too, and there's no problems with that. Or listen right through your computer instead of your phone. So Podbean, which I'm sure you're paying attention to this, fix your issues. Then again, I wonder if the phone crashing and then they have to go listen to it again gives us extra listens. So that might be working out for us.
That's true.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there's some way to program that.
So that it always crashes just before we get to the end, and then people have to go back.
Go over to the
and
computer
listen to
and
the
do an
whole
extra
thing
listen.
again.
Yes.
Well, that's for someone who's much more computer smarter to read than I am.
Okay, so MJ Folds says, I agree with Madeline. I love the song, but it does sound sad. Yeah, I have liked this since I heard it on the flashback box set. Sad, but with drama thanks to that piano. I would say it sounds very much like Mantovani, but I have never heard Mantovani. Well, if you ever start having insomnia problems, then check out Mantovani. The newer double album version confused me a bit. Yeah, I understand if it was meant to be a tiny instrumental bridge at the end, why it might be short. But in that case, why even name it? It would be like naming that trumpet flourish that comes between a couple of Eldorado tracks. Well, I'm glad we have the long version from Flashback, which I assume was the original B-side. Good job again, chaps.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's the one that was on the B side of Rock and Roll is King. It's the same one that's on Flashback, the longer version of After All. G. Brewer, I listened to this song over and over. Love After All, and hope someone will play it at my funeral. I love it. It is respectfully solemn. Reminds me of Sirens a bit. I forgot to check out Sirens. I don't think I want this one at my funeral though. I don't. I'd rather. My idea for my funeral, if I should die, I have no plans to do that, is to make it a lot of fun. I'm thinking circus clowns handing out animal balloons, like have a state fair kind of thing. There'll be rides and it'll be a good time for everybody. And no solemn, dreary music.
Coffin luge.
Often luge?
Coffin luge.
Coffin luge?
Yeah, where at the end what we do is we send
Oh, hell
down
yeah.
down a luge course, then plops it right in the hole at the bottom.
I like that. That may even work out better because I'd like to be frozen in a tube and thawed out later when science figures out how to, how to heal someone or finds a cure for for a wad of spam lodged in the throat. So that would be work. Put me in a tube, put me on like Splash Mountain there at Disneyland, and it goes through the whole thing and then into the Freon or whatever they freeze people in. And then a few years later, I'm back. Have finding a new host for my E.L.O. podcast for all the stuff that came out during that time.
Yeah, I'll still look the same.
Well, I don't know how. If you're still going to be alive, I don't know how long it's going to take for medical science to figure out how to cure the damaging effects of spam.
Well, I haven't had spam in years, so.
Oh, I love it. I'm amazed I'm alive.
I love it too. I just have not had it in forever, and just like Vienna sausages, I love Vienna sausages, and but I have somebody I live with that says no, they're not good for you.
Well, I used to have when I was a teenager. I guess from 13 to about 17, every single Wednesday I would fry up an entire can of spam and eat it in one sitting, which may explain why my cholesterol was so high when I was 18. And there are some things I don't know how I survived, and yet here I am.
Really need to move to Hawaii then.
Does it snow there?
No,
Do they have like
but spam is one of the main ingredients in most of the dishes.
do they have like large pine forests?
Well, not pine, I don't think.
Is it anything like New England?
They do have forests and jungle.
Is it anything like New England?
No.
No. Then I'll probably just move to New England because they have spam there too. So it all works out for me because I love New England. Anyway, Dookie can read the next comment.
Jim Kahn says, a darkened sky, a long stretch of desolate beach, and a big, lazy moon hanging overhead. The water shimmering with its dreamy reflection.
I can see that for After All too. That was actually pretty nice. Paints a nice word picture. Corey Gomel, haunting. I imagine a dark house. No one pays the light bill in scary movies. Some girl all alone walking the halls. Then hears this music and runs out of the house. Also, it never sounded quite finished to me. Maybe that's why it had several versions and still wasn't on the LP. I can see it kind of being kind of spooky.
And Doug Payton says, completely unrelated to After All, but I just wanted EPJ that I am impressed with the music bed behind Troy. No matter how short or long his thoughts, you manage to make the music end at the right time. No doubt shaving a bit off here or repeating some there. Yes, some people notice.
Well, thank you for the compliment, Dookie, and thank you, Doug Payton, for the compliment and noticing my production skills and how wonderful they are, and how somebody should hire me and pay me for my production skills, and then pay me heavily, and then
No, you'll get paid what most people get paid for their production skills,
yeah,
which is Dookie.
yeah, which I
Yeah.
believe I already am with the Patreon, and once that's all split between us, so about $8 a month, $10 a month. I guess I am getting paid. But
You're
people,
getting paid about the going rate for radio, yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all the comments about After All. So after all that, we're done with this one.
Say goodnight, Greasy.
Good night, Greasy. Good night, Dookie.